American success stories. A builder who left his mark on skylines around the world. A businessman with an extraordinary ability to communicate directly with the American people. A leader who grew tired of politicians, leading our country to
is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another four-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever is necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented, and the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefits of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Good evening. A little breaking news. Some severe weather hit land. It's tropical, actually it's Hurricane Sally is hitting landfall right now. This is live. Let's hope everybody is safe, and prayers for everybody's safety while this is going on. As you can see, it's starting to come ashore. I can't be too far. I don't know the exact location. I assume it's Louisiana. And let's keep everybody in mind in that area, in Texas and Florida, surrounding states, wherever it goes. Hurricanes can move very quickly and any direction. I just wanted to bring that to you in case somebody has relatives and want to know what's going on. Let's see, it's 100% rain. It's 80 or 78. 31 miles per hour winds. So let's keep them in mind, first of all, because it's really important that we think of them as well. On the other front, this is a history-making day, above and beyond anybody would ever think. And this is no joke. And every time something, I mean, it's not, I don't know if you really, it depends on how you want to look at what I'm going to say, is either a positive or a negative. It follows biblical times when it becomes the book of Revelations. We're starting to see a lot more peace in the Middle East. And things are really revving up. But first, in the little round table that the president had, yesterday or day before in California, he talked about the wildfires and the situation. And soy boy Gary Newsom was there. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. I really did not even hear about it. I didn't see it. I didn't have time. So this will be a first for me as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here. Great to be with the governor. We've been speaking a lot about the problem, and it's a big problem, and it'll get solved. We want to pay our love and respect, and we say God bless you to those that were killed in this horrible fire. I guess it's a series of fire. You put them together, and it's a big monster, Gavin, right? Big monster. Yep. But we are showing and give unwavering support for the people of California, and I have to say for the state of Washington and Oregon, who we're very much in touch with, also declaring your declarations. We have declarations for all three. Governor of California called me up, and we immediately signed the declaration. I think a lot of people would take a lot longer, but we wanted it fast. And I want to thank all of the FEMA people for doing such a great job. We really appreciate it. They've been fantastic. They've been fantastic. And thank you to Gavin Newsom, Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf, FEMA Administrator Pete Gaynor, and all of the people, state, local leaders, they join us today, and we're having a separate news conference a little bit later on some other subjects. And I just want to thank everybody. It's been pretty amazing. In August, I approved a major disaster declaration for California. I've approved, I think, Gavin, about 40 Stafford Act declarations. So very quickly, because we want to get this thing taken care of, including fire management assistance grants to help multiple states stop the fires. More than 28,000 firefighters and first responders are combating the fires in California, Oregon, and Washington. Over 230 soldiers are fighting the August Complex fire, and that's the largest fire in California. That's the big one. That's the biggest. And we want to thank all of the brave fighters. We want to thank these incredible people, the first responders, service members who are racing to the extreme peril, really, of their lives and extreme danger. Soon after the event, I'll present the Distinguished Flying Cross to 7 military heroes who recently braved raging fire and suffocating smoke to save lives. So we have 7 people that were recommended very strongly by your representatives, and we're going to give them a very nice medal, very important medal, for a U.S. medal that's very powerful, very important. So I know you like that. Together we'll keep the people safe. I want to thank the governor for the job he's done. We've had great coordination, great relationship. I know we come from different sides of the planet, but we actually have a very good relationship. Good man. And Governor, would you like to say something, please?
Well, it's great to have you back here in the state, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, in particular with 2 of the Coast Guard aircrafts that we're now bringing into the California family that are being retrofitted, these C-130.
As I pointed out yesterday, funny how nice he is right now to his face, right? And behind his back, he really talks bad about the president.
Just an example, another example of the partnership between the federal government and the state of California. That partnership, of course, extended with the incredible collaborative spirit of FEMA.
And by the way, they did catch arsonists in these fires. That include Washington, California, Oregon.
Pete has done an amazing job. He's known by first name as Pete out here in the state of California. Bob Fenton, his regional director. We're joined by Tom Porter, the chief of CAL FIRE, head of natural resources, Wade Crowfoot. Pleased to have the Fresno County Mayor here, Mayor Mims, and of course, supervisor from up north in Siskiyou, was kind enough to come all the way down. We've got fires from Siskiyou County, right up there at the border of Oregon, all the way down to the Mexican border. About a month ago, literally to the day, we began to have a series of 14,000 lightning strikes over a 3-day period. 1,100 fires have sparked in the last month. 2.8 million acres just in the last 30 days have burned. Unprecedented in California history. 3.2 million over the course of this calendar year. There's over 16,500 firefighters currently out in the lines. And I'm very pleased and I'm very grateful, Mr. President, that you're recognizing some of the other heroes, those National Guardmen and women that did an extraordinary job saving the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people stranded with some of these most intense fires. You mentioned the August Complex, 789,000 acres, the largest in California history. We have a series of forest fires, but also brush fires and grass fires that we're tackling. We've made great progress in the last few weeks. Though tragically we've lost 24 lives so far to these battles. 4,200 plus structures have been lost and 44,000 people have evacuated. I want to thank you and acknowledge the work that you've done to be immediate in terms of your response to our FMAG request 14. We were just talking, Mark Gilladucci, the head of the Office of Emergency Service. This may be a record that the states received in the FMAG support, as well as the major disaster declaration, which you referenced on August 22nd, which was profoundly significant, not only to help us support our mutual aid system, but also individuals that are in desperate need of support. We can agree to disagree, and I appreciate your frame on the politics of this, but let me just acknowledge 2 things briefly, and I'll turn it back to you. There's no question when you look past this decade and looking past almost 1,000 plus years that we have not done justice on our forest management. I don't think anyone disputes that. I want to acknowledge we have our U.S. Forest Representative.
Wait, what did he say? Did he actually say that? The president tweeting like crazy, they need to get their butts running and get rid of the dry brush. and he just totally ignored it.
Here, the state of California, your administration just entered into a first type commitment over the next 20 years to double our vegetation management and forest management.
Right.
I want to thank you for supporting that effort, funding that effort. We acknowledge our role and responsibility to do more in that space. But one thing is fundamental. 57% of the land in this state is federal forest land. 3% is California. So we really do need that support. We need that emphasis of engagement, and we are fully committed to working with you to advance that cause. And final point, I'd be negligent, and this is not, and we've known each other too long, and as you suggest, the working relationship I value. We obviously feel very strongly that the hots are getting hotter, the dries are getting drier. When we're having heat domes, the likes of which we've never seen in our history, the hottest August ever in the history of the state, the ferocity of these fires, the drought, 5+ years, losing 163.
Every time I hear this, I have to point out, originally California is a desert. It's a desert. So is Arizona. It started off that way. He doesn't
A million trees to that drought. Something's happened to the plumbing of the world. And we come from a perspective, humbly, where we submit the science is, in and observed evidence is self-evident, that climate change is real, and that is exacerbating this. And so I think there's an area of at least commonality on vegetation, forest management, but please respect, and I know you do, the difference of opinion out here as it relates to this fundamental issue on the issue of climate change.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Chad, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for coming to Sacramento today and, again, taking that decisive action that we heard the governor talk about and really pulling the full resources of the federal government here to California as well as to other areas out here in the West. Let me just reiterate the great partnership that we have between FEMA, the U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE, OES, the governor's office. It's really the partnership, it's really a model that we have out here in California that we think is just fantastic. It's getting a lot of support locally here very quickly. So I just wanted to reiterate that and say thank you to our partners for what you do every day. Let me just say they also do a great job on mutual aid. So they pull in a number of fire resources from outside of the state as well as country, for that matter. We were talking earlier about some international partners that they have here. We're happy to support that as well. And then let me just say thanks, as you did, Mr. President, to the brave firefighters and all the first responders that are responding every day to the fires that we see here. Those are the heroes of the day, and we're just happy to be part of that process. Happy to support them with the resources through your office, Mr. President, and just really again look forward to the partnership we have here and continuing to push that along.
Well, they're doing a great job, and they really have over the years. It's a tough battle, but they've never let us down.
No.
Incredible what they're able to do, and the risk and the danger. Pete Gaynor, please, FEMA.
Sir, you're going to hear this constantly about the partnership. I can't say enough about the federal, the state, counties, tribes working together out here in California from the governor on down. It is a true team effort. And I know, through the major disaster decks and the FMAGs have allowed the governor and his team to exercise all the resources that the federal government has to protect, to respond and protect life. And that's the number one priority. I know what we're going to be working on, debris removal, and then lastly, protection of the watershed to prevent follow-on disasters come the wet season. So together, I couldn't be prouder to be part of this team in California.
That's great. Thank you, Pete. Great job. Let everybody know what we think. Incredible job. So Wade and Tom, please.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, there is amazing partnership on the ground, and there needs to be. As the governor said, we've had temperatures explode this summer. You may have learned that we broke a world record in the Death Valley, 130 degrees. But even in greater LA, 120 plus degrees. And we're seeing this warming trend make our summers warmer, but also our winters warmer as well. So I think one area of mutual agreement and priority is vegetation management. But I think we want to work with you to really recognize the changing climate and what it means to our forests and actually work together with that science. That science is going to be key, because if we if we ignore that science and sort of put our head in the sand and think it's all about vegetation management, we're not going to succeed together.
Well, when he talks like that, maybe in order to control climate change, is to quit blowing so much hot air.
Protecting Californians.
Okay. It'll start getting cooler.
I wish
You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
I
like that.
I don't think science knows, actually. Tom,
So,
please.
Mr. President, if you're okay, I'd like to approach the map. And
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
Governor, good?
That's great. Thanks, Chief.
So on my way, I'll just generate.
Little guy don't know what to say anymore.
That enters into as has been already identified. But I wanted to approach the map because what this displays very simply is all of the green is federal lands, Forest Service, BIA, BLM, all of the agencies included, Fish and Wildlife Service. The yellow is all private land. And then that 3% you can't really see, it's scattered out here, that's the state lands. But what we have showing here is the ownership and then the fires that we're currently fighting. All the way from down up near the Mexican border, within 8 miles of the Mexican border, all the way into Oregon. So we've got 1,000-mile spread between these fires. We have about, in order to put line around these fires with all the partnership we're talking about, we have to cut line, scrape line in the ground from here to Chicago. So it's a lot of dirt we have to move. But
And why is that? Why are you doing that?
you have to put a line between the green and the black in order to put a fire out.
Really?
We do. So what we're seeing is in the south here, in around 2000, we had beetle kill that caused large fires, the Cedar Fire, the old fire,
Right.
the Grand Prix, huge fires in 2000. 2010s through the 15 time, massive beetle kill in this area and large fires throughout.
Well, those trees have died anyway,
They died
from the beetle kill.
From beetles, from drought.
so they were largely dead, or the area was largely dead in terms of the trees?
They died from the beetle kill, and now they're being burned up by the fires.
Yeah.
Now we're also seeing it. Here's the
Do you view that differently when the trees are dead and the whole area? Because I know the beetle kill has been terrible.
Yes.
So do you view that differently? And now you're going to be clearing it or doing whatever you're going to do?
163 million. So it's,
Yeah.
boy, it's a
No, it's
hell of a
something.
job, right? To start clearing that out.
Yeah. So we focus
But those
on-
trees are dead, and therefore they're very flammable. They're
They
explosive.
are. They are. And so then we have what I'll call the asbestos forest, the redwood region. It doesn't burn more than a few hundred acres on occasion. With this year, we have 85,000 plus almost 60,000 plus these fires are getting into redwood as well. We're gonna have over.
So why is not, because of the thickness, the power of the tree? Why aren't they burning?
They have bark that's about 2 feet thick.
And they're very
And
wet.
they're very wet. They're very resilient to fire.
Are you losing some redwoods or almost
Some
none?
redwoods are dying, but most of them will be okay. It's everything else that's getting.
No kidding. That's something. I'd never heard that before. So with time they could go, but the fact is they don't go with the fires. That's a fantastic.
Yeah, and they're 2,000 years old in that area.
That is so incredible. Huh?
It's incredible to see.
Think of that, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the landscape.
So your giant redwoods are where? What area? The giant redwoods.
So we have coastal redwoods, and then we have giant sequoia, which is they're the biggest girth of a tree.
And they're in good shape.
They're getting burned, but they will also survive. Those ancient trees will survive. But this fire down here, the SQF complex, is
Will the bark regenerate on the outside eventually?
the bark will continue to accumulate on the outside, and then the tree will continue to survive.
Do you see a big difference?
Yes.
You see, will that change with time, where you don't see it, or will you always know there was a fire there?
You'll always know there was a fire.
You'll always know.
'Cause
On the redwoods.
They get scars.
Yeah.
Over time. That's how we can tell.
Well,
how-
that in itself is a shame when you think, right?
Oh, boy.
That in itself is a shame. So that's an incredible story. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mark, would you like to say something?
Well, Mr. President, first of all, thanks for being here. The term I use here is a term I use, one team, one fight, and it really does represent everything that you're seeing today. All the agencies that we're working with before during, and then after these disasters occur. I couldn't be more pleased. Our partnership with FEMA has been fantastic. Right now, as you mentioned, you've provided a major disaster for 11 counties within the state, different categories, and many of the people who have lost things have already started to register with FEMA, and that's been really a beneficial support to us.
Right.
So we appreciate that. And the mitigation is really, really critical. Since 2017, we've done 94 projects, about $138 million worth of mitigation focused on fire prevention. It's a whole variety of different kinds of projects and programs within the wildland and what we call the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, to try to buy down the amount of impacts that these fires are occurring. And so we really appreciate that. All these new fires and this new declaration provides additional mitigation funds, which we will turn back around and continue to support the mitigation.
How many
efforts.
individual fires do you have?
I think we have right now actively about 29 major fires.
So when you add them all up, this is about as big as it's ever been, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, 1,100 just since, I mean, think about that, 1,100
Yeah.
fire starts in the last 29 days, with 29 complexes.
So
They're
we
the
all
largest
put them
we've-
out, most of them are put out early.
making tremendous progress. The three largest, they're still active. Two of them are substantially contained.
Yeah.
The August, we have still a lot of work to do.
And Governor, if I could, just for the president, this is a bar chart that shows the acreage burned over the years. Top bar is this year. And the real scary part, Mr. President, is we're only partway through the season.
Right.
The worst fire that you obviously visited, the Paradise Fire,
was a
happened
bad
in
one.
October. So we're still, staring down the barrel of worse fires potentially this
We
year.
were there together. Let me ask you in Paradise. So did they it was like a blowtorch, right? Because the winds are 85 miles an hour. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. So that was different. Has there ever been anything like that in terms of the power and the heat?
Well, I'll tell you this, sir. The Creek Fire that the sheriff evacuated folks from is generating some of the worst heat in Fresno and Madera counties that's ever been experienced, creating its own weather cloud that almost looked like a mushroom cloud.
I see. So that creates the heat also. That's incredible. Would you like to say something, please?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Mr. President, for coming and visiting California. And on behalf of Fresno County, who I'm speaking for today, I want to thank you for your visit. Beginning on September 4th, our Creek Fire started. It impacted not only the residents, but utility infrastructure that services California.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. That's a big problem, isn't it, huh? How is that going?
Progress. We got the largest utility in the United States, PG&E, out of bankruptcy in record time with
Good.
firm commitments to make sure we
Good.
never walk back down that path.
Good.
No, wait a minute. Now, it's been reported Newsom had redid his mansion, if you will, to the sum of $3.8 million. All that money could have went to infrastructure. It's only a drop in the bucket, but it's something. You could get something started. You could work on the power grids.
It's a lot of utilities that are burning up, though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So our fire right now is over 200,000 acres, and it's really more than any single local government can take care of. And so we are asking for assistance. And we've already made some progress today by getting a hold of FEMA, and I made a request from Pete to have a representative right in our command post, and we're making that happen. So that's going to be very valuable for us. Not only has it impacted our woodland, but the families that have lived there for generations in that area. The Big Creek hydroelectric power generating system that served California for over 100 years is destroyed, as well as the people that live there in their homes that operate that system. One major concern in the future is erosion, slope stability, ash runoff, and possible mudslides as a
So
result.
what's going to take the place of that generator? What are you going to do?
We have to actually restart it. It's Southern California Edison.
So you'll be able to fix it and restart it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Clear the process.
It's a big damage. Big.
Well, it was a hydroelectric plant that wasn't directly damaged, but there was damage leading up to the facility.
I see.
And so we'll mitigate all that now.
I love hydro. Hydroelectric, I think it's great. You must like that. I love the hydroelectric. Go ahead, please.
So far, we've had over 300 structures that have burned, but we could have had many more. And I need to commend the efforts that CAL FIRE gave to us, not only with pre-work by doing some tree mortality mitigation,
Right.
but during that fire, they were able to cut some breaks that allowed us, law enforcement, to evacuate over 20,000 people from these areas. And so they just did a great job, and I am glad to report that in Fresno County, we've had no loss of life.
Right.
And I will say that in Fresno County, we understand that we need a strong partnership with our federal government, and we are ready, willing, and able to be your partner on this. We support.
And your state government.
Of
right?
course.
That's going good, right?
Of course. We're getting what
I have
we
no
need.
doubt. Good.
In fact,
we had to mention that.
of the areas that we've mitigated, I think in Fresno County, we got 5 of those.
So you're working well with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President, Thank you, Mr. President, for being here and listening to a very rural community and county in California. I'm at the far extreme end of the state up there they were pointing to. My county continues to repeat the things that you saw in Paradise when you were there on a smaller scale. The town of Happy Camp this year is under the Slater fire that took off, and in a 24-hour period, we lost 258 structures in a very small town. Half of my population is displaced at this point in time. We have 158 homes completely destroyed.
Will that population come back?
Sir, that's a tough question because these are very poor people anyway, and they're living through the downturn of the timber economy at this point, and there's very low employment in this area. We are completely surrounded by federal timber at this point that needs some active forest management that would both improve the economy of the area as well as even increase the water flow that is in shortage in California in some of these places. Personally, I'm coming to you as a forester, elected official, and a past land manager for the U.S. Forest Service and firefighter.
Right.
In this area, I've worked with UC Berkeley and UC Merced on some studies. Our forests in the northern region, which historically have been pretty asbestos-like, are carrying 4 times the density that they did in 1930. So we have both the increase in brush in the wildland interface, as well as the lack of management producing these extreme densities. And climate changes, and I can't do much about that. As a forester actively managing that forest, I can manipulate fuels, and I can do that in a pretty short order. I applaud you for the work you've done. I applaud you for the Farm Bill authorities. Our county just completed a master stewardship agreement with the U.S. Forest Service, and we have about a 500,000 acre project that's ready to go across all boundaries in our state and the 4 national forests that within.
Well, Gavin's working on that with me, and you make money too. You're cutting down trees, you're thinning it out, and you're selling those trees for a lot of money, and it's really pretty good in a lot of ways. And I guess one of the things are the cuts, the big, whether it's 50 yards or 100 yards, but the cuts to stop it from spreading. And that's always tough environmentally, but they can do it in a way that's pretty good. And I think now the environmentalists have come a long way after watching this.
Yeah.
The ones that really want to take care of a problem, they've come a long way. So they'll be thinning it out. Then you're working on a plan to thin it out.
That's what the plan is right now. I will say that we have excellent working relationships with CAL FIRE as well.
Good.
And we need to marry the state programs with the federal programs across boundaries and jurisdictional boundaries, so that we're effective in moderating large fire behavior.
And Mr. President, just to the supervisor's point, that's exactly what the stewardship partnership that we advance with your administrations will do in the next 20 years. Is we're sharing maps, we're sharing resources, we're prioritizing, we're doubling the number of acres federally managed, state managed, and I will say just humbly, we've got to double it still, meaning The partnership was significant. It was first in California's history with the U.S. government, but we're going to need to do a lot more.
Well, I'm all for it.
Provide
That's
more
something
support.
I feel so strongly about. You can knock this down to nothing. You know, you go to Europe and different places in Europe, countries where they're forest countries, and they're very, very strong on management, and they don't have a problem. They really don't have, with, as they say, more explosive trees than we have in California. So thank you very much for your comments. But we're working on that very hard together, and I think we're totally in sync. I really think we're totally in sync.
Governor?
We're going to see you in a few minutes for the award ceremony. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So I think that was actually really good that he met with him, even though he's a jackass. You still got to work with him, you know. I mean, the president is very aware of why they do stuff like this. Because when you have a fire like this, you get federal funds, and states like that who are, quote, sanctuary states don't get no funds because he's not going to tolerate that. In Chicago, you have New York. Michigan probably is there somewhere. We probably have a few cities that way, but this is how they work. Now, this was arson. There's video that shows people, at least one person, deliberately lighting a fire. Then there was another guy caught who was walking behind somebody's house, and he had matches, and the homeowner caught him, pulled the gun, and made a citizen's arrest. Now, but you also got to think back. Before Bernie ever got out of the race, you had one of his staff members say, well, Bernie doesn't get the nominee, we're going to burn the place down. And Project Veritas got that. It was very, very memorable. And this guy is not a nice man. He does have a record. And several, I'm sure, BLMers and Antifa jerks are involved because they don't care. They're not interested in hurting anybody. And this really, and I understand now why they are not doing anything as of the president. But once again, it seems like you got to continue to remind somebody that the governor of that state has to ask the federal government to step in and send troops in, or National Guard. Well, they do have power over the National Guard, but then they can bring in federal agents, such as ICE, or even more military if needed. I'm sure they'll have the ATF. So that's why the president hasn't done nothing yet. But I think he's at his wit's end with all these guys, considering. There has been a lot of world events also going on besides here at home. Mike Pompeo was actually on a news program, and I have not seen this either. I just found it. Front page
and around the world and live on C-SPAN 2 to Atlantic Council front page, or hashtag AC front page to the Twitterati among you. It's our premier live ideas platform for global leaders. It's our honor today to host the 70th Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, former member of Congress, former U.S. Army officer, finished first in his class at West Point, Harvard Law School graduate, and of course, much more. I'm Fred Kemp, President and CEO of the Atlantic Council, and Mr. Secretary, this is a historic day. Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain are scheduled to sign the Abraham Accord, the first such agreement between Arab countries and Israel in more than a quarter century. President Trump will attend, and the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, will sign with the UAE and Bahraini foreign ministers. Secretary Pompeo, we have a lot to discuss in this tight half hour. China and the Indo-Pacific, your recent trips to Europe and their connection to China issues. But let's start with the Middle East, though I know you also have a few prepared comments. But my first question would be looking at the long-term implications for the U.S. in the region of this accord. How does the U.S. alliance structure look longer term? What does this shift strategically?
Now, for those people who are not aware, and sometimes there's a lot out there who don't know their history, Carter was one of the first that I at least remember to sign a peace treaty with Jordan and Israel. And that was back in the 70s. So that was with Anwar Sadat. And he ended up being assassinated.
So whatever opening comments you have, and then let's dig into the Middle East.
Well, first of all, Fred, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you all today. It is a big day. I will literally, as soon as we wrap up here, I will head over to the White House for this historic opportunity for these three nations to sign documents that will recognize the reality. And maybe, Fred, that's where I'd begin with respect to the Trump administration's approach to the Middle East. I have prepared remarks. I'll skip them for the sake of having a good conversation. The strategy began with the reality. For decades, this town's foreign policy with respect to the Middle East gave the Palestinians a veto right, said that they could act in a way that prevented any Arab nation from engaging with the most important democracy in the Middle East, whether that's commercial, security, relationships, all the ways that nations interact. We took a different view. We laid out a vision for peace that had another element, which was the deep recognition that the primary destabilizing force in the Middle East was not the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, but was rather the threat posed by the extraterritorial ambitions of the clerical regime in Iran. So we flipped what the previous administration was doing on its head. We identified Iran as the strategic threat to the United States of America and began to lay out a set of policies that would deliver security for the American people related to that. So whether, and I was in Doha this weekend, it's not disconnected either. For the first time now in 20 years, Afghans sat down together to begin to pound out what a reconciled, peaceful Afghanistan might look like. Under no illusions about who we're negotiating with, who these parties are, how difficult that process will be. But it's a recognition of the reality of the things that America has accomplished. There's fewer than 200 al-Qaeda left in Afghanistan today. We are now delivering a set of outcomes that will reduce the cost in blood from our American servicemen and women, in treasure from the American taxpayer, and risk to the United States of America. So what we'll see today at the White House is a set of countries who came to the same conclusion that we did, what was in their best sovereign national interest to recognize the state of Israel, to normalize relationships with them, and build out security relationships around that. A coalition that has been in the works for 3+ years now. I heard someone the other day say, boy, this happened overnight. I can assure you, this has taken all the efforts under President Trump's leadership for 3 years now to get us to this place today.
And the question of what kind of impact this could have on the U.S. alliance structure, could there be tectonic shifts that go way beyond what we've seen thus far? What is your view there? What are the longer term implications for the region and for the United States in the region?
I think this recognizes the reality that the Gulf states have all recognized. It shouldn't go without notice. Not only have these nations chosen to recognize Israel, but when the Gulf states all got together and the Palestinians demanded that there be a statement denouncing what took place, that did not occur. Frankly, the only two countries that have vehemently denounced this were Iran and Turkey. And so, yes, there is a big shift in how these alliances are set. The previous administration took an Iran-centric focus, funneled hundreds of millions of dollars to the Islamic Republic of Iran to enable them to underwrite Hezbollah, the Shia militias in Iraq, to undermine Lebanese and Iraqi sovereignty and stability, created chaos inside of Syria. This administration has taken a fundamentally different approach to creating an opportunity for increased stability in the Middle East and less risk to America.
you've mentioned Iran. What are the implications for Iran, do you believe? This week reported to be weighing an assassination attempt, the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. As you know, Mr. Secretary, I was in the Middle East at the time that we hit Qasem Soleimani, the Iraqi general, and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, the Iraqi commander. That assassination attempt was ostensibly to be in revenge for that hit. So I think the specific question is the implications of this agreement to Iran, but also a little bit of context of where you think we are right now in that struggle.
Well, we should take the Iranians' word for what they think about these set of agreements. They think this fundamentally is a detriment to their security. They have made accusations about their Muslim brothers that are outrageous about it. And it has frankly shown the true anti-Semitic nature of the regime in Iran as well. Look, I don't want to comment on the intelligence, but the Iranians didn't need an action by the United States to conduct assassination campaigns around the world. This has been their model for 40 years. You know this too, Fred. There's their model of conducting political assassinations in Europe and other places and building out networks and capabilities, proxy forces all around the world. This is the Iranian model. What we have done is strive to build out a set of understandings that denies the regime the capabilities, and you can see it. You can see a weakened capacity from Hezbollah. You can see them scratching and clawing and turning to narcotics activities to generate revenue. You can see what's happening in Iraq, a greater space for Shia militias now to join and put the monopoly on arms back in the hands of the Iraqi leadership. All of these things came because of President Trump's fundamental understanding that the way we had been conducting our business in the Middle East for decades hadn't delivered on American security. And we're now getting us to a place where we'll be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Let's shift to China. As I talk to people observing the Trump administration's foreign policy, they point to the Middle East and China as the areas where there's probably, at this point, the most lasting legacy. Some believe your speech on China at the Nixon Library and Museum was one of historic significance in July. Following the speeches of the National Security Advisor, the FBI Director, and the Attorney General, there's direct comparisons being made to Ronald Reagan and his trust and verify. You said distrust and verify. You called China for its, quote, desire for global hegemony. How would you view this comparison to Reagan toward the Soviet Union and Pompeo Trump toward China? And do you want the same outcome that Reagan eventually got with Moscow, which was the collapse of Soviet communism?
Well, the outcome, of course, that we're seeking is to ensure that the rules-based system that has benefited not only the United States of America, but freedom-loving peoples all around the world is the dominant force for the next century, for the century that we're in as well. That's the objective set. That is, in fact, when I talked about Chinese desire for hegemony, that's what I'm speaking to. That's what it is they're trying to undermine. It's what the Chinese Communist Party says. We should take them at their word. When Xi Jinping talks about national rejuvenation, he's not talking about a party. He's not talking about having a really good day and a celebration. He's talking about the Middle Kingdom. He's talking about these central ideas of nationalism, Chinese nationalism, and the Marxist-Leninist underpinnings of his regime. He's dedicated to that. He's committed to it.
And right now, the Chinese government, President Xi is actually getting more aggressive in the China Sea and around the world because they know their backs are against the wall. That includes India, Taiwan, and they're still building islands for military purpose. I mean, they're literally building them. And trying to claim the China Sea.
Do it. He's put resources against it. They have a model that is highly developed, state-sponsored enterprises and their civil military fusion program. These are things Xi Jinping knows, and for an awfully long time, the West sat on its hands. We turned the other cheek. What I spoke about at the Nixon Library most clearly was a need to reorient and recognize that whatever the policy that were chosen back in the 1970s, whether they may well have made sense at the time, they no longer make sense for the security of the American people. This isn't just a security issue. This is a fundamental understanding about how economies grow and how we preserve jobs and wealth creation and prosperity here in the United States of America. This is central to the Trump administration's foreign policy. I believe it's going to be central to every administration's foreign policy for years to come.
Trump administration critics say it would be easier to counter China, as you said, for years to come into future administrations, if we had done more to rally allies. I know you've been in Asia and Europe doing exactly that. Where do you feel you've succeeded? Where do you have worries? Whether you look at Germany, South Korea, Japan, even the UAE, they all have China as their number one trading partner at the moment.
Yeah, Fred, that's an important question, and I've seen this critique. Let me give you two thoughts. First, the most important ally to have on this is the American people. The American people need to fundamentally understand the threat that is imposed on them, and you've seen, I've traveled to the United States. I'm going to travel to a state capital next week, talk about the threat from the United Front here inside the United States. You've seen what we did to the den of spies that was in Houston. We closed it. That's been going on a long time. We've just said, well, it's just too bad. Goodness gracious, we have an open country. They're just going to spy and steal our stuff. President Trump has said enough. We're not going to do that. And so the most important group that we need to make the case for is to convince the American people of this threat and this challenge. And I think we've gone a long ways into communicating transparently about why it is the case that allowing tens of millions of jobs to have been stolen through the Chinese Communist predatory economic activity here in the United States cannot continue. That connects deeply to the second piece of this, which is, to your point, international allies. I've spent my year and a half as director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and now, goodness gracious, coming on 2.5 years here as a Secretary of State, all around the world, talking to them, not coercively, not threateningly, just data, just facts about what the Chinese Communist Party is doing to their people and to their country, to the threats that it poses to their sovereignty. And I must say, it's been rewarding over the last 6 or 8 months to watch the shift. The world has awakened. My view is that the tide has turned. I think whether it's their recognition of the cover-up that took place with respect to the Chinese virus, whether it's the predatory activity that now falling flat all across Africa, whether it's the ASEAN countries who I spoke with in multiple meetings last week, coming to understand that these attacks on their economic activities inside their own resource zones are things that they have the capacity to stand up to, so long as America is prepared to do it alongside them. I think these are powerful shifts in the world's view of the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. And I think commercial activity, that engagement with China, will reflect those risks. I've seen it. I've seen it from American business leaders. They understand now much more clearly the political risk associated with operating inside a country dominated and controlled by a single party, the Chinese Communist Party.
General Jim Jones, Executive Chairman Emeritus of the Atlantic Council, former National Security Advisor, Supreme Allied Commander Europe, sends in a question along those lines, or digging a little bit deeper. It seems to many of us that China has made Europe an epicenter, almost a target of its global efforts. You've been to Europe recently, you've talked to people. Specifically, you've signed secure 5G MOUs, Slovenia, elsewhere. His question is, how will you effectuate those MOUs, and do we have an alternative to Huawei to offer our friends and allies?
So Jim asks, as he always does, a good question. What we can do at the United States is we have the capacity to control information that, for example, comes into our embassies. I'll give this as a micro example. We've now told the world that information coming to our embassies must only come from trusted vendors. It means it can't come across a system that has the capacity to flow information back to the Chinese Communist Party or the MSS or their national security apparatus. So there's a micro example, but we're building these systems out with our allies and friends, with the Australians, with the Japanese, with the South Koreans, with the Indians, each of whom has come to have a shared understanding of the threat. As for alternatives, I was very distressed to find the gap between Huawei and American technology with respect to 5G, or for that matter, Western technology. But over what's really now the last 2 years, I've watched I've watched Ericsson and Nokia take up the mantle. I've watched American companies too begin to build out their systems and processes. I am confident that there will be cost-effective deliverables from Western trusted vendors that can deliver the same services or better services at comparative costs. They'll never match them. When you have state-owned enterprises, you literally have subsidization. That's funny. We always joke about the battle between Airbus and Boeing being state subsidized. That is child's play compared to what the Chinese Communist Party does. These are companies that were built on stealing American technology, bringing it back to the homeland, and then turning around and dumping it in the United States of America and around the world, and then bullying countries into accepting this technology. I think nations come to understand that when the Chinese show up and say that it's free, nothing could be further from the truth. They've now come to recognize the real costs connected with putting untrusted vendors in their systems. And over time, I think the world will come to recognize that's not the right path. And you will see Western technologies that are verifiable, trustworthy, and transparent come to dominate the telecommunications markets.
We will leave it there. And he is always prepared, and he knows what he's talking about. Chinese have always been screwing us over, and working with the Bidens, and working with the Pelosi's and Newsoms and whomever, and of course the Whitmers. There's a list. There was a governor's convention. Chinese made a list: friendlies, unfriendlies. Whitmer was in the friendlies. So they're very friendly with the Chinese. Funny how she also bought drones from China, just like probably New York. And also today, one of the most historic events that has happened in so long. Well, I should rephrase that. Everything that the president has done has been very historic. But this is the top so far. This tops it all. And that is the peace deal with Israel and the Arab Emirates.
Token of affection given by myself and the First Lady to Prime Minister and the First Lady of Israel. And it's a key, we call it a key to the White House, and it's a key to our country and to our hearts. And you've been an amazing leader for a long period of time, and this is in many respects the big day, because this is something that's very special. And, we just left UAE and Bahrain. We're going to meet outside in a ceremony, and it's just a very important event, and it's an honor to have you with us, baby. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have said, and this is true, that you have the key to the hearts of the people of Israel because of all the great things you've done for the Jewish state and the Jewish people. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. And we look forward to being outside. Yes, please.
Mr. President, this is a great event. This is a great event. I think there's tremendous achievements. You know that Israel is getting a lot. What is Israel giving back?
This is the Israeli press that wants to chip away.
Well, I think what really Israel is getting, and what we're all getting, but what Israel is getting more than anything else is peace. They're going to have peace. As you know, UAE, United Arab Emirates, is a great warring nation, a very powerful nation in the region, and they very much wanted to do this. Mohammed's a tremendous leader, like Bibi is a tremendous leader, and it was important to have them first very early. And the relationship is fantastic, and a lot of people are surprised to see it. And as you know, we have Bahrain, and we have many nations ready to follow. Many nations. No, not now. I won't. But you'll see. We'll be signing up other nations, and these are very strong agreements. These are very strong. This is really peace. This is serious peace. And so I think what Israel gets, the most important thing that they're getting by far is peace. Excuse me, one at a time, please.
She's the woman in white. She's the one in white.
In the white, go ahead.
Thank you. Vital from Channel 20. Is it possible to know which countries will be following the Emirates?
Well, we'll be announced.
Maybe Iran?
Yeah, we're very far down the road with about 5 countries, 5 additional countries. Frankly, I think we could have had them here today. We thought out of respect, UAE, they deserved it. And Bahrain came immediately after. They really wanted to do it. But we'll have that.
Now, does anybody or actually notice something a little different in that scene? Anything? Look at Air Force One. It's not blue. It's red. Makes you want to wonder, eh? Might need a new paint job.
At least 5 or 6 countries coming along very quickly. And we're already talking to them. And they want to see peace. You know, they've been fighting for a long time. They're tired. They're warring countries, but they're tired. They're tired of fighting. And so you're going to be seeing further announcements. This is, it's a very big day. I guess they said, so there were 2 countries over a 72-year period, and we did an additional 2, and these are great countries. We did an additional 2 in 1 month.
29 days.
But you're going to see a lot of very great activity. It's going to be peace in the Middle East.
Will it promote the F-35 deal, even if it's no objective?
Say it.
Will you promote the F-35 deal, even if it's no objective?
Yeah, we're gonna work that out. We'll work that out. That's going to be an easy thing. And we've fought with UAE 4 times, 4 different wars. They've been very, very loyal to us, and we have a better relationship with them now than we ever had in the past. In fact, in the past it was very strained. We have a very good relationship with them. All of that works out. That's going to be very easy to work out.
Yeah.
Less isolated today than they were this last week, and Mr. Prime Minister, maybe you can answer that question as well.
Well, I think Israel's not isolated anymore because I can tell you we have the 2 countries, plus you had an additional 2, as you know, from many, many years ago. And now you have a situation where many of the countries, and I can actually say most of the countries, but many of the countries in the Middle East want to sign this deal. And I think when that happens, hopefully after the election, because I really believe Iran wants to make a deal. They've had a very tough time. Their GDP is down 27% because of the sanctions and all of the other things. And I don't want that to happen. I want Iran to be a great country, a great nation. I think that would be a wonderful thing. But I think, and I've even said that, I've said that to representatives of them, you should wait to see the election first. There is nothing they or China or probably Russia would like better than to have Sleepy Joe Biden become the president. Because if Sleepy Joe won, they would own the United States, all of them. China would own the United States. So I told all of them, I said, wait till after the election. But after the election, we have to make a better deal. I do say that. We're going to make a better deal than we would have. But with Iran, they certainly should wait till after the election because, frankly, if Biden wins, they'll make a much better deal. But I'm going to make a good deal with Iran. I'm going to make a deal that's great for Iran. It's going to get them back. We're going to help them in every way possible. And Iran will be very happy. Iran will be very rich and very quickly. But I think they should wait till after the election. You understand what I mean by that? Because a dream for those countries would be Sleepy Joe.
Do you believe you will also broker a deal with the Palestinians?
Say it?
Do you believe you will also broker a deal with the Palestinians?
Yeah, I think they come along and they're already, obviously we speak to them. They've come a long way. We used to pay them $750 million a year when I got here. And I said to people that negotiated with them before, why did you pay when they treat the United States with such disrespect? They speak so badly. Death to America, death to Israel. I said, we give them $750 million a year. I said, why didn't somebody cut off those payments? Well, we didn't think it would be appropriate. I said, well, I do. And I cut off the payments to them, as you know. But other countries give them money. You deal with very rich countries. And these countries are now all signing with us. They'll all be signed with us, all of them. I spoke with the King of Saudi Arabia. We had a great conversation. And I think positive things will happen there, too. He's a great gentleman. And the Crown Prince, We spoke with the Crown Prince. So we've made tremendous strides, and this is peace in the Middle East without blood all over the sand. I say it. Right now, it's been blood all over the sand for decades and decades and decades. That's all they do is they fight and kill people, and nobody gets anything. And this is strong peace, really strong peace. And it's a different way. We went in the back door, but I call it going in the very smart door. We went in the smart door, and we're getting people, and the Palestinians will absolutely be a member. I don't say that with any bravado. I just tell you the Palestinians will be a member at the right time. At the right time.
Will they have state of themselves and your peace?
We're working a deal. We are talking to the Palestinians. At the right time, they'll be joining too.
And as long as your president is annexation off the table, is that something
We don't want to talk about that right now, but that's working out very well and very fair and very good for the people that are coming in and for Israel. And again, Israel wants peace, and they're a great warring nation if they have to be. You see that. They have the best equipment, they have the best of everything, but they don't want this. After all of these years, even Bibi gets tired of war. But they've been, look, they're a strong nation, a strong power, a strong military nation, but they want to get on with their lives. Israel wants peace. They really want peace. And I give this gentleman a great deal of credit. He's done a great job.
Thank you. Mr. President, I heard a question from one of the people here. Does Israel feel isolated? Heck no. We're breaking out to the entire world because we have a strong free economy, because we have a strong military, because we have a strong relationship with the President of the United States and the American people. And I can tell you that we have a strong relationship throughout the Middle East. The President intimated how many countries are waiting to join this circle of peace. Israel doesn't feel isolated at all. It's enjoying the greatest diplomatic triumph of its history. I think the people who feel isolated are the tyrants of Tehran because of the pressure that the president has applied on them, because of the resistance to this bad Iran deal. They are under pressure. And, I hope they'll all come around. I hope everyone will come around to the circle of peace. But no, we don't feel isolated at all. Quite the contrary.
I would say this, there's less isolation right now for Israel than there's ever been. I mean, today they would be less isolated than ever been. I want to just thank your great ambassador, Ron. Thank you very much. How do you feel about isolation? I think you're starting to see the light, huh?
I can imagine what will happen when everyone's courting Israel if this is what isolation looks like.
No, it's good. We love Israel, and I'll tell you what, I have great respect for the countries that have stepped up so beautifully. And you're going to see that in a little while. We're having a ceremony, and thank you all for being here. Thank you very much.
That was a nice little news conference. I thought that was really awesome to see that Bibi Netanyahu got the key. That is another thing that you do not see very often. Now, before this is set, I want to show you this real quick. The whole thing must have started in 2017 because remember when the president went to the Middle East conference, Arab Summit, he must have made one hell of an impression. Hey, David, how's it going? So he had worked a miracle, maybe not for him, but for something that we thought would never happen in our lifetime. As all these Arab countries, even though that Saudi has been a very close ally, I think we become even closer, which is fantastic. Saudi is working on going from a oil base, petrol, to industrial. And it must have started in that summit. Now, we're seeing all the fruits and labor of the president's trip. We have even Kosovo and Bosnia coming to peace with Israel. They're recognized, and I think Kosovo is a Muslim state, recognizes Israel. Now, the ones we got to worry about still, as I said, is Turkey. They're going Islamic. And for many years, we've supplied them with military. So I'm sure they're really keeping a close eye on them. And, of course, Iran. You still have problems in Syria, parts of Yemen. There's been a civil war there. I think the Yemenis have lost half of their country. I still think it's occupied by a proxy-backed Iran. Then you have Lebanon, whose entire government just walked out. They quit because of an explosion that occurred, excuse me. Not really a stutter. Then you have Palestine. You know, I've always said that Palestine would not come willingly. It's more or less they got to. They're not going to have much choice. President Trump, on September 15th, said Palestinians will 100% come to the table for Middle East peace. And I did have a map up, and I forgot to bring it because I've done it before. I still have it, of the plan. It's not the final plan of how to make Palestinian a state and live side by side with Israel. It's up to the Palestinian people. It's up to how bad do they want peace. I know Hamas is a proxy, once again, back to Iran. President Trump will welcome delegates from Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain to the White House Tuesday to sign a historic peace treaty. Just the beginning to the peace of the Middle Just the beginning to peace in the Middle East, told Fox and Friends Tuesday morning, revealing that other countries will, of course, come. And Palestine leadership is expected countermeasures in Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Mohammed Saeed called the signing of the Arab Accord Tuesday dark day in the history of the Arab nations and the Arab League. Palestine said they will also boycott Dubai and the World Fair next year. Well, take your toys and go home. You know, nobody wants you there anyway. You guys can't have peace. They don't want you. Until you guys grow up, become civil, and learn to play with each other. I should not say play with each other. Maybe that's still wrong, but never mind. Play nice. Then you can just live in your shithole country, which is not really a country. It's still occupied territory, and Israel is still building, as far as I'm aware of, in certain areas. So that is still one that is being worked out until they want to join the civilized world with everybody else. No, don't know, tell them. Live in your little shithole, like I just said. And today, the historic signing. This was amazing. Just amazing. It's great to see this after centuries, decades of fighting. And as I said, the last time that I'm aware of was in Jimmy Carter's term with Jordan. And let's watch this. This is just so wonderful. Warms the heart.
Emirates and the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain.
It is a great day in history, I'm telling you, to see this.
Thank you very much. Please. Thank you. The First Lady and I are honored to welcome to the White House Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and Mrs. Netanyahu. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. And Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed, United Arab Emirates, UAE. Thank you very much. And Foreign Minister Abdulaziz Al Zani of Bahrain. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're here this afternoon to change the course of history. After decades of division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East. Thanks to the great courage of the leaders of these three countries, we take a major stride toward a future in which people of all faiths and backgrounds live together in peace and prosperity. In a few moments, these visionary leaders will sign the first two peace deals between Israel and the Arab state in more than a quarter century. In Israel's entire history, there have previously been only two such agreements. Now we have achieved two in a single month. And I'm sure that most of you notice when you go to fill up your tank of gas in your car, often, and there are more to follow. Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain will establish embassies, exchange ambassadors, and begin to cooperate and work together so strongly to cooperate as partners across the broad range of sectors, from tourism to trade and healthcare to security. They're going to work together. They are friends. The Abraham Accords also opened the door for Muslims around the world to visit the historic sites in Israel and to peacefully pray at Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, the third holiest site in Islam.
Hey, Nathan.
Together, these agreements will serve as the foundation for a comprehensive peace across the entire region, something which nobody thought was possible, certainly not in this day and age, maybe in many decades from now, but one founded on shared interests, mutual respect, and friendship. To our honored guests from Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, congratulations on this outstanding achievement. Congratulations. Fantastic. I also want to thank Vice President Mike Pence. Thank you, Mike. Great job. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mike, thank you very much. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien. Robert, thank you. Mr. Jared Kushner. Jared, thank you very much. Ambassador Brian Hook. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you. Thank you. And Avi Berkowitz. Avi, thank you very much. I also want to give a very special thanks. He's been an incredible ambassador to Israel. David Friedman. That's a very great group of people, great group of patriots. They wanted this to happen so.
Is somebody going to do an investigation into Christianity?
so badly. They worked so hard. And again, nobody thought it could happen, and they thought it could happen. They never even doubted it. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. For generations, the people of the Middle East have been held back by old conflicts, hostilities, lies, treacheries. So many things held them back. Actually, lies that the Jews and Arabs were enemies and that Al-Aqsa Mosque was under attack. Constantly, they would say it was under attack. These lies passed down from generation to generation, fueled a vicious cycle of terror and violence that spread across the region and all over the world. These agreements prove that the nations of the region are breaking free from the failed approaches of the past. Today's signing sets history on a new course, and there will be other countries very, very soon that will follow these great leaders. The people of the Middle East will no longer allow hatred of Israel to be fomented as an excuse for radicalism or extremism. So important. And they'll no longer allow the great destiny of their region to be denied. On my first foreign trip as president, I had the honor of addressing the leaders of more than 54 Arab and Muslim nations in Saudi Arabia. My message that day was very simple. I urge the nations of the Middle East to set aside their differences, unite against the common enemy of civilization, and work together toward the noble aims of security and prosperity. I offered America's friendship. I offered America's help. But I said clearly that the nations of the regions had to decide what kind of a future they wanted for their children and for their families and for their nation itself. No one could make that choice for them. They had to do that themselves. Today, the world sees that they're choosing cooperation over conflict, friendship over enmity, prosperity over poverty, and hope over despair. They are choosing a future in which Arabs and Israelis, Muslims, Jews, and Christians can live together, pray together, and dream together, side by side in harmony, community, and peace. Once again, let me congratulate the people of Israel, the people of the United Arab Emirates, and the people of the Kingdom of Bahrain. God bless you all. This is an incredible day for the world. This is a really wonderful and beautiful occasion. I want to thank all of the members of Congress for being here. Senators, congressmen, congresswomen, we just appreciate it so much. Everybody wanted to be here. It's a very important day for the world. It's a very important day for peace. Before the parties sign the accords, I'd like to ask Prime Minister Netanyahu to say a few words, followed by the Foreign Minister of the United Arab Emirates and the Foreign Minister of Bahrain. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you.
Our dear friend, President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, thank you for hosting me, my wife Sarah, and our entire delegation on this historic day. I want to recognize Vice President Pence, Secretary Pompeo, National Security Advisor O'Brien, and other cabinet members, Jared Kushner, Avi Berkowitz, Ambassador Friedman, and other members of the President's able peace team, senators, members of Congress, Israeli Ambassador Ron Dermer, his Emirate and Bahraini counterparts, as well as all the dignitaries gathered here on this sunny day. I want to also express my gratitude for all the Israelis who've worked for years, sometimes in less sunny climes, to bring this date, and I thank each and every one of you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, this day is a pivot of history. It heralds a new dawn of peace. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have prayed for peace. For decades, the Jewish state has prayed for peace. And this is why today we're filled with such profound gratitude. I am grateful to you, President Trump, for your decisive leadership. You have unequivocally stood by Israel's side. You have boldly confronted the tyrants of Tehran. You've proposed.
Now, something I know that we firmly disagree on, besides the place of government, is our current president. Obviously, I'm a Trump supporter.
Proposed a realistic vision for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. And you have successfully brokered the historic peace that we are signing today, a peace that has broad support in Israel, in America, in the Middle East, indeed in the entire world. I am grateful to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed of the United Arab Emirates and to you, Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed. I thank you both for your wise leadership and for working with the United States and Israel to expand the circle of peace. I am grateful to King Hamad of Bahrain and to you, Foreign Minister Abdul Latif Al-Zayani, for joining us in bringing hope to all the children of Abraham. To all of Israel's friends in the Middle East, those who are with us today and those who will join us tomorrow, I say, Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto thee. Shalom. And you have heard from the President that he is already lining up more and more countries. This is unimaginable a few years ago, but with resolve, determination, a fresh look at the way peace is done, this is being achieved. Thank you, Mr. President.
And it's probably putting the deep state in like a tizzy right now because they've always wanted war. This stops their wars and they don't like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the people of Israel well know the price of war. I know the price of war. I was wounded in battle. A fellow soldier, a very close friend of mine, died in my arms. My brother Yoni lost his life while leading his soldiers to rescue hostages held.
They're hiding Biden in his basement at home. They're hiding Biden and his
by terrorists at Entebbe. My parents' grief over the loss of Yoni was unrelieved until their dying day. And over the years, when I've come to console the families of Israel's fallen soldiers and victims of terror, I have seen that same grief countless times. And this is why I am so deeply moved to be here today. For those who bear the wounds of war, cherish the blessings of peace.
No, Palestine is not a legitimate country. It's made up of Syrian and other nationality, Middle Eastern countries. There's no such thing as a Palestinian.
And the blessings of the peace we make today will be enormous. First, because this peace will eventually expand to include other Arab states, and ultimately, it can end the Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all.
America first, Israel first as well. We walk side by side. And ties to be, that is not true.
Second, because the great economic benefits of our partnership will be felt throughout our region, and they will reach every one of our citizens. And third, because this is not only a peace between leaders, it's a peace between peoples. Israelis, Emiratis, and Bahrainis are already embracing one another. We are eager to invest in a future of partnership, prosperity, and peace. We've already begun to cooperate on combating Corona, and I'm sure that together we can find solutions to many of the problems that afflict our region and beyond. So despite the many challenges and hardships that we all face, despite all that, let us pause for a moment to appreciate this remarkable day. Let us rise above any political divide. Let us put all cynicism aside. Let us feel, on this day, the pulse of history. For long after the pandemic is gone, the peace we make today will endure. Ladies and gentlemen, I have devoted my life to securing Israel's place among the nations to ensure the future of the one and only Jewish state. To accomplish that goal, I work to make Israel strong, very strong. For history has taught us that strength brings security, strength brings allies.
I am a bona fide, registered, proud Black Republican.
My name is... And ultimately, and this is something President Trump has said again and again, ultimately, strength brings peace. King David expressed this basic truth thousands of years ago in our eternal capital, Jerusalem. His prayer, immortalized in the book of Psalms in the Bible, echoes from our glorious past and guides us towards a brilliant future. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. May God give strength to his people.
That is a lie. Trenton. That is a total lie.
May God bless his people with peace. Mr. President, distinguished guests, this week is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And what a blessing we bring to this new year. A blessing of friendship, a blessing of hope, a blessing of peace. Thank you.
Iran has killed thousands.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Highness, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates.
When?
President, Mr. Prime Minister, and my friend Abdul Latif Zayani.
No, I know.
Distinguished guests. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me start by conveying the best regards of the UAE people and the leadership.
Whether it was indirectly or directly, they have killed thousands. There's still a proxy war going on in Yemen. They're in Syria. they're trying to infiltrate Iraq.
And especially of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, you, Mr. President, and everyone gathered here today. I'll continue my speech in Arabic, and
well, if he's a Jew hater, me and him won't really see eye to eye, will we?
I'm sure there will be translation to that. أقف اليوم أمد يد سلام وأستقبل يد سلام. نقول في ديننا الإسلامي: اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام. فالبحث عن السلم مبدأ أصيل، ولكن المبادئ تتحقق فعلا عندما تتحول إلى أفعال. وها نحن اليوم نشهد فعلا سوف يغير الشرق الأوسط وسيبعث الأمل حول العالم.
I stand here today to extend a hand of peace and receive a hand of peace. In our faith, we say, "O God, you are peace, and from you comes peace." The search for peace is an innate principle, yet principles are effectively realized when they are transformed into action. Today, we are already witnessing a change.
You're not Julius Caesar, okay? No, I'm not.
In the heart of the Middle East, a change that will send hope around the world.
لم تكن هذه المبادرة ممكنة لولا جهود فخامة الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب وفريقه الذي سعى بجد وإخلاص لنصل إلى هنا. وهنا لابد لي أن أشير إلى صديقي وزير الخارجية مايك بومبيو، وصديقي جاريد كوشنر كبير مستشاري الرئيس الأمريكي، وكل المخلصين لمبدأ السلام في الولايات المتحدة الذين سعوا لتحقيق هذا الإنجاز الكبير. شكرا لكم.
This initiative would not have been possible without the efforts of His Excellency President Donald Trump and his team, who worked hard and sincerely for us all to reach here. Most notably, my counterpart, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Jared Kushner, Senior Advisor to the President of the United States, and all those who are genuine about the principle of peace in the United States, who have strived to realize.
Troll boy, I'm part Jew.
This major achievement. Thank you.
دولة رئيس الوزراء الإسرائيلي بنجامين نتنياهو، شكرا لك على اختيارك السلام ووقف ضم الأراضي الفلسطينية.
There it is what? Come on, spit it out. There it is what? Who wants war? Not me. You're about to get your ass kicked out of here. I don't
مما
tolerate
يعزز
that.
إرادتنا المجتمعة لتحقيق مستقبل أفضل للأجيال القادمة.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of the State of Israel, thank you for choosing peace and for halting the annexation of Palestinian territories, a decision that reinforces our shared will to achieve a better future for generations to come.
سادة الحضور، نشهد اليوم فكرا جديدا سيخلق مسارا أفضل لمنطقة الشرق الأوسط، فمعاهدة السلام هذه تعد إنجازا تاريخيا لكل من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية ودولة إسرائيل ودولة الإمارات. لن يتوقف.
Well, Troll Boy, I have no problem with Arabs. It's the extremists I have a problem with.
أثرها الإيجابي، بل إننا نؤمن بأن ثمارها ستنعكس على المنطقة بأسرها، فكل خيار غير السلام سيعني دمار وفقر ومعاناة إنسانية. إن هذه الرؤية الجديدة التي بدأت تتشكل باجتماعنا اليوم لمستقبل منطقة مليئة بالطاقات الشابة ليست شعارا نرفعه، من أجل مكاسب سياسية، فالجميع يتطلع إلى خلق مستقبل أكثر استقرار وازدهار.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing today a new trend that will create a better path for the Middle East. This peace accord, which is a historic achievement for the United States of America, the State of Israel, and the United Arab Emirates, will continue to have a positive impact, as we believe that its reverberations will be reflected on the entire region. Every option other than peace would signify destruction, poverty, and human suffering. This new vision, which is beginning to take shape as we meet today for the future of the region, full of youthful energy, is not a slogan that we raise for political gain, as everyone looks forward to creating a more stable, prosperous, and secure future.
في زمن يسود فيه العلم يتطلع شباب المنطقة ليكونوا جزءا من هذا الحراك الإنساني. وكم يسعدنا أن تكون الإمارات جزءا من قوة الدفع هذا نحو الاستقرار ونمو الطاقات البشرية في مقاربة حضارية جديدة تفتح أبواب الفرص على مصراعيها ليستفيد منها محبي السلام والازدهار والمستقبل. فمجتمعاتنا اليوم
I want to start by saying, hello Nevada, how are you doing? How are you?
تمتلك مقومات التنمية الإنسانية الحديثة من بنية تحتية واقتصاد متين وإنجازات علمية تؤهلها للنهوض بمستقبل الشرق الأوسط.
At a time when science is prevailing, the region's youth are looking forward to taking part in this great humanitarian movement. We are pleased that the United Arab Emirates will be part of the momentum towards stability and the growth of human potential in a new civilized approach that opens wide the doors of opportunity for those who look forward towards peace, prosperity, and the future. Our societies today possess the foundation of modern human development, such as infrastructure, a solid economy, and scientific achievements that will enable them to advance the future of the Middle East.
تؤمن الإمارات بأن دور الولايات المتحدة في المنطقة الشرق الأوسط إيجابي، والدليل هذه المعاهدة التي نوقع اليوم في البيت الأبيض، حيث ستظل في التاريخ الإنساني منارة مضيئة لكل محبي السلام. وبالنسبة لنا فإن هذه المعاهدة ستمكننا من الوقوف أكثر إلى جانب الشعب الفلسطيني وتحقيق آماله في دولة مستقلة ضمن منطقة مستقرة ومزدهرة. تأتي هذه المعاهدات العربية التي وقعت مع إسرائيل في العقود الماضية كخطوة ولبنة مهمة للمستقبل، حيث الهدف من هذه المعاهدات هو العمل نحو الاستقرار والتنمية.
The United Arab Emirates believes that the role of the United States in the Middle East is positive, and this belief is evidenced by the accord that we are signing today at the White House, for which you have taken the lead, and will remain a beacon in human history for all peace-loving people around the world. And as for us in the United Arab Emirates, this accord will enable us to continue to stand by the Palestinian people and realize their hopes for an independent state within a stable and prosperous region. This accord builds upon previous peace agreements signed by Arab nations with the State of Israel. The aim of all these treaties is to work towards stability and sustainable development.
هذه السنة صعبة على العالم الذي يعاني من تداعيات كورونا. عززت بلدي التزاماتها تجاه المبادئ الإنسانية التي أرساها مؤسس دولة الإمارات الشيخ زايد، الذي علمنا بأن وقوف جانب مع الآخر أي من كان هذا الشخص مهما كان انتمائه العرقي أو الديني هو واجب إنساني ومبدأ راسخ.
In this difficult
So I saw on your profile that you like to cook.
Oh, I love it. This is my specialty.
year, when the world is suffering from the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, my country, the United Arab Emirates, has reinforced its humanitarian commitments established by our nation's founding father, Sheikh Zayed, who taught us that standing with others, regardless of their religious or ethnic affiliation, is a humanitarian duty and a firm principle.
استطاعت بلدي أيضا في هذه الظروف الصعبة أن تطلق مسبار إلى المريخ. إن مسبار الأمل في الحقيقة يمثل أمل بأن منطقتنا قادرة على النهوض والتقدم، إذ تبنت الحكومات والشعوب العلوم. وبعد أن أرسلت الإمارات رائد الفضاء هزاع المنصوري العام الماضي إلى محطة الفضاء الدولية وأطلقت محطة سلمية للطاقة النووية، جاءت هذه الاتفاقية لتفتح آفاق أوسع لسلام شامل في المنطقة.
During this difficult time, the United Arab Emirates, my country, was able to launch a probe to Mars. The HOPE probe indeed represents hope that our region is capable of advancement and progress if governments and people embrace science. After the United Arab Emirates sent astronaut Hazza al-Mansouri last year as the first Arab astronaut to reach the International Space Station and launched a peaceful nuclear power plant, this accord opened up prospects for a comprehensive peace in the region.
سادة الحضور، إن السلام يحتاج إلى شجاعة، وصناعة المستقبل تحتاج إلى معرفة، والنهوض بالأمم يحتاج إلى إخلاص ومثابرة. لقد أتينا اليوم لنقول للعالم إن هذا نهجنا، السلام مبدأنا، ومن كانت بدايته صحيحة ستكون إنجازاته مشرقة بإذن الله. شكرا جزيلا. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ladies and gentlemen, peace requires courage, and shaping the future requires knowledge. The advancement of nations requires sincerity and persistence. We have come today to tell the world that this is our approach and that peace is our guiding principle. Those who begin things in the right way.
We were just attacked. That's right, about 4 a.m., the printing press of our Hong Kong edition
will reap bright achievements with the grace of God. Thank you.
With grace of God, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Mr. President, the First Lady, Prime Minister, Your Highness, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today is a truly historic occasion, a moment of hope and opportunity for all the peoples of the Middle East, and in particular for the millions in our younger generations. The declaration supporting peace between the Kingdom of Bahrain and the State of Israel is an historic step on the road to genuine and lasting peace, security, and prosperity across the region, and for all who live there, regardless of religion, sect, ethnicity, or ideology. For too long, the Middle East has been set back by conflict and mistrust, causing untold destruction and thwarting the potential of generations of our best and brightest young people. Now, I'm convinced we have the opportunity to change that. Today's declaration was made possible by the vision, courage, and commitment of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, who, supported by the people of Bahrain, has protected, institutionalized, and enhanced Bahrain's centuries-old spirit of coexistence and harmony, and has the wisdom to recognize that genuine cooperation is the most effective means to achieve peace
Thank you very
and
much,
to
David.
safeguard legitimate rights.
You're saying your father buried Jimmy Hoffa? Yes. And you know where that
Thank you, Your Majesty, for this vision of peace for the region based on trust, respect, and understanding between.
Thank you for the diamond. Can't help it.
All faiths, races, and nations. To our brothers in the United Arab Emirates, I congratulate you on your own momentous peace accord being signed today with Israel. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed has shown great leadership and foresight to make peace possible and secure a brighter future for our region.
Thank you, Move Time.
For the State of Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu, we welcome and appreciate these steps from you and your government, recognizing that enduring peace and security is only possible through a genuine engagement that protects the rights and interests of countries and peoples in the region. In particular, I want to express my deep appreciation to President Donald Trump. And his administration. Mr. President, your statesmanship and tireless efforts have brought us here today and made peace a reality. And to Secretary Pompeo, Senior Advisor Jared Kushner, and Special Representative Avi Rikovitz, who have, and others, many others, who have carried out their mandates with dedication and skill. Ladies and gentlemen, today's agreement is an important first step, and it is now incumbent on us to work urgently and actively to bring about the lasting peace and security our peoples deserve. A just, comprehensive, and enduring two-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict will be the foundation, the bedrock of such peace. We have shown today that such a path is possible, even realistic. What was only dreamed of a few years ago is now achievable, and we can see before us a golden opportunity for peace, security, and prosperity for our region. Let us, together and with our international partners, waste no time in seizing it. Thank you.
Hopefully they will all work together and possibly convince Palestine to come to the table. It is a possibility with the Arab nations. I don't think they're going to get Iran there, though. Amen. That's true. Even though the president doesn't want the Nobel Peace Prize, he deserves it. More than likely, he'll get it. They will be totally isolated. We still got Qatar too, who is also friends with the Brotherhood of the Muslim Brotherhood.
The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, and His Highness, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the United Arab Emirates, will sign a treaty of peace, diplomatic relations, and full normalization. They will each sign 3 copies, one in English, Hebrew, and Arabic. We kindly ask that all guests remain seated for the signing of the documents.
Who would ever think we would see this day? It's amazing. Warms the heart.
Can you be helpful here and tell me your mom?
You do the same for me in Arabic.
I will.
So, which one is mine?
Thank you.
Years.
Fact check.
That
John James
is-
says he'll protect healthcare.
That's amazing. It's
He supported a plan that would take away protections for pre-existing conditions and would have left 23 million Americans.
That's not true. But there you go, folks. The Abraham Accord is signed there. And to round it off, it is just spectacular, you know. And to round it off, there is the problem with the Mueller investigation is a lot of people heard that they could be in some more serious trouble, and this is a felony. They tampered with evidence, and here on Jay Sekulow, here you go.
Had this story come up that on the Mueller team, 27 different times phones were wiped completely clean, intentionally.
Oh, God, I hate when they do that. Shoot. God, Facebook sucks. So, really, they wiped out 17 phones complete before handing them in. Oh, man. Bastards. They wiped here, let me try this. We'll give it one more try. Let's see.
Different times phones were wiped completely clean, intentionally sometimes because they were put into airplane mode, and then wrong passwords were put in 10 different times. It takes at least almost 2 hours to do that. And so that was done a couple of times. People like Andrew Weissman, a couple of times to their phones. To Jim Quarles, who was the top deputy to Bob Mueller, He just said his phone just wiped clean on its own. He didn't do anything. It just spontaneously wiped clean. So we're talking about this, how it could be illegal, but also the fact is that they literally put people in jail for things like this, for in investigations like this. And these are supposed to be, Andrew Weissman, who's a big Biden donor, big supporter of Joe Biden, supposed to be like the genius prosecutor. Most of his indictments have been overturned throughout the history of his work because he's overzealous. And yet he now looks like he should be the one behind bars. Because it's of all the people, he's admitted, it looks like, that twice he could not remember. This is supposed to be a genius prosecutor.
Right.
Top prosecutor. Twice he could not remember his phone's 6-digit password. Went through 2 hours without calling anybody, with the phone reminding him that if you keep doing this, it's going to wipe all the info. And did it twice and wiped his phone clean so that there would be no data when he turned it over to the Inspector General at the DOJ.
Doesn't that really
Who should
sound
really be in
familiar?
jail? Paul Manafort or Andrew Weissman?
We should be sentenced. George Papadopoulos?
No, Andrew
Right.
Weissman. I mean,
Yeah. So here's
we know that this stung from the beginning of the witch hunt. It was corrupt. They found nothing. They came up with nothing against the president. There was nothing there in the first place. It was all made up.
but you're right, talking about obstruction of justice. But remember this, Will pointed this out, our producer. When the IRS, when we wanted the emails from Lois Lerner, they said they did not have them on backup.
Right.
There was no server capability. They could not find
computer
them.
crashed.
Her computer
they had no
mysteriously
backup.
crashed. There was no backup, Andy, and the documents weren't available.
Yeah, there's a lot of unavailability of documents in these investigations, and it seems somewhat strange to me that is a recurring theme. Lerner's documents are not available. Now we want to look at the documents from the texts and messages and telephone calls of the Mueller team, and suddenly they're unavailable because they were accidentally wiped clean, and you can't get to them. And Quarles' phone was wiped itself without intervention from him. If you believe that, then you're the stupidest person on the earth. It's sad that these prosecutors who are charged with the administration of justice would stoop to this
Andy,
kind
we
of
dealt
conduct.
with these people for 3 years. For 3 years. And they knew there was no Russia collusion within months. That's what all the reports show.
Right.
And they try to make up this obstruction campaign,
Yet
they're the ones obstructing.
That's it.
They're making sure they'd obstruct the investigation. When we said to investigate the investigators, they're
right.
obstructing that investigation. But it is pointing out their wrongdoing. This alone is criminal. This alone you can go to jail for. Doesn't matter what the info was that they deleted. They deleted it. They intentionally took government records and government documents and deleted it.
I was thinking the same thing, Humi.
Wrestle president.
I was actually going to say that. You beat me to it. Yeah, it's amazing how these things suddenly happen. It's like bad luck, right? Wink, wink. Just like Hillary. And Becca in the chat is correct. The NSA will have it. There's no getting around it. They not only they still have the evidence of the NSA, but now they just added more charges to their butt. So just keep piling on, people. Just keep piling on. And speaking of, let me see here. My mouse isn't moving very well tonight. When you have, how do I want to say, when people are not being patient when it comes to the Durham report, well, you have to wait for all this evidence to go to a grand jury. Just like how many people are probably having cases how many cases are waiting still? You still got to do the investigations. You got to bring it before the grand jury. Then it becomes a secret indictment. Because if you start handing out indictments, these people, you don't have the evidence, you got a problem. You don't have a case. And you smear the reputation. Even though we know Clinton mysteriously everybody that has dirt on her mysteriously dies, Clinton side, so to speak. They shoot themselves twice in the back of the head. And, mysterious things. They, they kill themselves in a cell where they have nothing but a bed sheet. Imagine that. So, that's how the grand jury works. And on that note, we have one of Durham's aides had quit the other day. Now, I found out a little bit more about this lady. She is a lawyer, and she quit because she doesn't like Trump. And she felt that there was too much pressure, that she didn't know if it was the right thing to do. So she's out. God, I hope she lost her job completely. Just because she's a never-Trumper, she just can't be professional and do her job. So she doesn't deserve it. So her name, I had it here, and they did confirm that she did quit. Dang it, I had it. Oh yeah, it's Nora Dunley. She left because she's a never-Trumper. Good enough for me. Get her out. Don't need her. On that note, thank you for everybody in chat and viewing and who will watch replay. I do appreciate all of you. I just opened the chest in DLive. Please join me on Twitter, Twitch, maybe YouTube. I'm about ready to get rid of Periscope too. In DLive, and I'm going to BitChute. And I'm working on something else. It's in the works. So God bless all of you, every single one of you. God bless the President of the United States and Becca 127, David 116. There you go. There's your lemons, David. And movie time. You got 11 lemons. Exactly. So God bless the President of the United States, Vice President. Hello, Renee. I just seen you pop in. God bless the military and law enforcement. Please say some prayers for them and support them. Even if it's putting a blue flag in their support. Know them that they're welcomed. Everybody cares for them. Everybody wants the law enforcement there. I'm actually thought of something earlier. Speaking of law enforcement, I'm going to have to check with somebody first. I just thought maybe I could try to get somebody. Might be interesting. God bless military. First responders, men and women of the medical fields, and Border Patrol, and Coast Guard. God bless all of you as well. Get that traitorous lady off my screen. And hopefully we'll see you next time. I really appreciate every single one of you. I really do. And remember, on Sunday night, coming up at 10:30 is the regular show, Fighting for the Republic. And this week's guest is Doc Martin, the one and only. So please join. I will probably be on before the week is out. So I'll see you then. God bless y'all.
Biden.